energy drink. Maybe energy drink.
Good afternoon, everybody. For your patience. Take this moment to simply go ahead and hear. Simply relax. The peace within. To release what transpired before this very moment. To release all the issues that we're dealing with. Simply relax. Peace. So to begin today's session, I'm going to take you through what we call the coherence practice. The coherence practice is made up of 3 steps. I'll start by saying heart focus, where I ask you to simply focus your heart, your attention on your heart space. The second step will be heart breathing. Slower and gently. Simply imagining that we are breathing through the heart. And then the third step, I would say heart feeling of appreciation. And at this point, I invite you to bring into your mind, to your heart, whatever that fills you with joy. For some people, it's being in nature. For other people, it's a picture maybe of their kids. For some people, it's their pets. The point is, it has to be something that fills you with love, something that fills you with a sense of appreciation, something that fills you with a deep sense of gratitude. So those are the 3 steps. So once again, I invite you to go with it and focus on your heart focus. And now heart breathing. Breathing slower than before. Breathing gently, breathing easily, as if you are breathing through the heart. And now heart feeling of appreciation. Using whatever is easy for you. Whatever that fills you with love, with joy, with peace, and with gratitude. Heart feeling.
Mm-hmm.
take this energy of appreciation and simply let it fill us up. Imagine your body surrounded by a bubble of appreciation and love. Take this energy of love and appreciation and redirect it to our host today, KG and Kennedy. Let us send you the energy of love and appreciation.
It plays and then it stops.
Remaining this silence and sense of gratitude. We send this energy of love and appreciation to all our loved ones. To our parents, living or departed. To our sisters and brothers. To our children. Let us send them this love and appreciation. We send this energy of love and appreciation to all the citizens of the world. Keeping in our hearts the people of Ukraine. And keeping in our hearts anyone who may be going through a difficult time. Anyone that may be dealing with loss of any form. Let us send love and coherence. Let there be peace. Let there be peace. Let it begin. Space of peace. I invite you to once more focus on your heart. Focus. And heart. Breathe as if you are simply breathing through. writings, we say together, thank you, God.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lord.
So it is.
And so it is. Thank you so much, Evelyn. Thank you for that coherence, and I needed it. I know many of us did because we started in a rush, and there was a delay. So that coherence really got me to center, and yeah, that heart feeling of appreciation makes the whole body just feel so at peace. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so it's finally Divine Mother Day. Okay, I'll start with an opening and welcome. So to all of you who are here, thank you so much for being here. I see we've got quite a few people online. Thank you for being here. We will get your names as we interact. I would like to welcome you to the first of many workshops on the Divine Mother. Yay. And it's been a long journey getting here. So I really appreciate each and every one of you who are here in person and those of you online. And you know, I hope that these messages that I will share, they will resonate with you in some way, form, or another. And I hope they speak to you as much as they did to me. And for all those who are curious about the Divine Mother, I hope to shed some light about the Divine Feminine or the Divine Mother or the creative energy, whichever word we choose to call it. And let a little bit of my perspective bring you closer to your truth and closer to your connection with the Divine Mother. So as we begin, I'll first start with the preamble that I wrote to the book. So I'm going to write a book of all these messages from the Divine Mother. And just to introduce myself before I start, my name is Khuthazo Nkengetwa. I'm cordially known as KG. So please feel free to call me KG, even if you have any questions or as we engage during this workshop. So just the preamble to my book, it says this: the following writings are channelings from the Divine Mother over a series of years. Although you read them as one book, the channelings happened at different times over a spiritual journey. They are in chronological order, although the dates are unclear. This journey crossed space, time, and even the line of sanity. But in it all, I found myself. I found the Divine Mother in me, and I share her with you now. I hope these writings help you just as they did me, to find God in you, to find that the Divine Mother lives in you, for she lives in me, and she lives in all of us. So we'll begin the session with a chant, and we've got Matu Nokwe online, who will chant with me. Now, this chant was revealed to me in the silence during a channeling session, and this is the first time I'm ever sharing it, ever. So it is a chant that aids me in the invocation of the Divine Mother. You can join in the chant if you want, or you can merely just listen in silence, whatever feels comfortable to you.
What's going on?
There is no prescription in this workshop, and the only thing I implore you in this workshop is just to open your heart, to open your mind, and more importantly, to open your soul. All right. So, Mamdu, I will start the first line, and you can then join in on the higher octave. You know, I've got this down. Okay, Mama.
Yeah, okay. Hiya, waya, sawaya, hey, saw, hey, saw,
Hey, waya, sawaya.
sawaya, hey, waya, sawaya, hey, saw. Hey, so.
Hey ya, waya, sawaya. Hey ya,
Hey, waya, sawaya. Hey, so. Hey, so.
thank you. Let's just stay in that vibration of the change. Okay, there's been a request to do the chant one more time. So Mom, too, if you are still with me, let's do it one more time, repeating it 3 times like we did just now.
Okay, there's something I need to note. Zoom has a tendency that when people are singing together at the same time, one has to keep quiet at some point. So that's exactly what I was doing, because like the frequencies cross each other.
Okay,
But so I'm gonna keep timing you. Yeah. Okay.
okay, it's okay. It was flowing beautifully, Mama.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Hey ya, waya, sawaya. Hey ya,
Hey waya sawaya. Hey so. Hey so.
hey ya, waya, sawaya. Hey ya,
Hey waya sawaya. Hey so. Hey so.
hey ya, waya, sawaya. Hey ya,
Hey waya sawaya. Hey so. Hey so.
mm, mm. I feel the vibrations so deeply. So deeply. I will begin with a prayer and an invocation of the divine. Father, Mother, God, Holy Spirit, we come to you today in this sacred space. We open up a space of sharing, a space of heartstrings, a space of soul strings, a space knowing that whoever is here, and whoever has eyes will see, and whoever has ears will hear. I now invoke the presence of the Divine Mother. Speak through me, O Great One. Speak through me, divinity, through me, as me. Speak through me. Let this not be my words, but the words of the Divine Mother in me. Let the Divine Mother speak in every heart that is in this space, whether over the ethers, through the internet, or in person, physically, right now. I invoke the Divine Mother right here and right now. And so it is. Amen. So it is. Amen. Okay. Now that we are in that space, this workshop will be interactive. There are no wrong or right answers. And I want us to engage because this is a space where we grow spiritually, where we grow in mind, body, and spirit. And I welcome even those of you who are online. If you want to speak and you feel free sharing, please do not be afraid because I will ask questions and I will give you a chance to interact because we are all as one. This is transcending time, it's transcending space. We are all together right here, right now. Just some house rules before we start. The respect for one another is key. So, no ridiculing, no sneering, let us all just respect each other. And I know in this Unity family, we already do, respect each other quite a lot. And this is a space for you to be free to express yourself. And Ntantla, you may be quite new here, but we love each other and, we embrace everyone. And there's another name saying Ntantla. I was talking to this Ntantla. I'm in between the two countries. I'm in between the two countries. I'm doubly blessed. I'm overflowing in that. Okay, so I think I'm gonna start with a question, because I think this question will kind of show me, or not even show me, but will highlight where we are and what our different concepts are. So just a question, I'm just gonna write as we speak, but when you hear the Divine Mother, what is your first word or first thought? This is open to also you that are online. It's open to all of us, so that let's interact. So I just want to start with just that question. When you hear Divine Mother or Divine Feminine, what are some words or phrases that come to your mind?
Love.
Love. Okay, let me get a few pictures. Okay, so we have love. I hope I'm writing big enough for those of you online to see. Creation. Creation. Anyone, even online, if you.
And Nosipho says Mother Earth.
Mother Earth, beautiful. Mother Earth. Inspiration, lovely. Inspiration and nurturing. 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 Any other ideas or thoughts? For me, it's energy. That's my word. Energy. Beauty. Beauty. But beauty.
Oh.
Beauty. Beauty. Beauty.
I think for me, it's also balance.
Balance. Oh, so important. Thanks, Gabriel. Balance.
When
Yeah.
the mother is not there, you can't be like,
Yeah. Connection, lovely. Yes, connection.
Guidance.
Connection. Guidance. This is beautiful. And we're going to come back to all these words at the end after we've done the readings and the excerpts that I have. But I just want us to put all these words. Are there any other words from the floor online? You can just unmute yourself if you want to speak. If not, then I'll move forward.
Somebody, Maku just wrote teacher.
Teacher. Awesome. Teacher. Teacher.
Yes.
You can unmute yourself and talk. It's okay. We can hear you.
Order.
Order.
I think order goes with balance.
Yeah, order and balance go together. Okay, so that's awesome. So we've got love, creation, Mother Earth, inspiration, nurturing, energy, beauty, connection, guidance, teacher, order, and balance. And all these words, don't they bring in a positive to you? You know, they are positive words. So I love that. So for now, we'll park them and I'll come back to them. But I just wanted us to put those words out there. So what I'll start with, I'll begin with the brief history. So it's going to be 3 main parts. So first I'll begin with the history, then I'll look at the aspects, and then we'll go into the actual channelings, my journey, and then we'll go into the channelings. So, you know, as I'm a researcher by profession, you see, so like I really went, you know, the intellectual side of you wants to intellectualize things. So I wanted to understand, you know, the intellectual aspect of the Divine Mother. So I went into the history side, you know, has this ever been really defined in any sense? So then we realized that it's actually mostly in the Eastern texts. So in the yogic and the Hindu cultures, where you find that they've spoken about the aspect of Divine Mother, and where they have goddesses as well. So you find that they have goddesses, and they speak about the lotus flower and these kind of things. And there's one that was very beautiful from, I think it was from the Hindu that said, it's the feminine aspect of the primal creator of the universe. You know, the feminine aspect of the primal creator of the universe. And there's another one from the yogi side, which I really loved, which was beautiful, which spoke to the Divine Mother as representing the true power of love, safety, and transcendental consciousness. So it's an elevated consciousness. And there's another one also, all of these are more from the Eastern texts, you know, and we'll go into the Christian aspect just now, and I'd like us to discuss just a bit on that. Yes, sure.
And the African aspect of it, I'd like to put in the Zulu.
Oh, yes. Oh, awesome. So we'll have the Zulu aspect of it as well.
The isiZulu.
The isiZulu aspect, yes.
Yes.
Sure. So also the Divine Mother is Om. And I'm sure we've heard, you know, sometimes when they meditate in the Hindu and Eastern cultures, so that vibration is actually considered a vibration of the Divine Mother, which I actually found quite interesting. Yes.
Let's find that one.
Yes.
All fine.
Yes. So it's a sacred vibration that manifests all creation. And you know, it's a feminine aspect with the creation aspect being feminine. So now in Christianity, it's often associated with the Holy Spirit, but sometimes it's also called the Holy Ghost, which I find so funny because it's like they're abdicating the feminine and calling it a ghost, like something that's there far away, you know. And when you think of ghost, you don't have a positive feeling, you know. You're thinking of something lurking, you know, that's lurking in the dark, you know. So overall, it's a feminine aspect of God, but we know that God is neither male or female, right? It's just the feminine characteristic, the feminine quality, the feminine energy of God. And for me, one of the biggest things is that it changes a perspective of God from a man up there in the sky who's trying to beat you and waiting to punish you and counting your rights and wrongs, you see. And so it really modifies the aspect of God. Sure, you can go ahead with the isiZulu aspect you wanted to add.
Yes, the isiZulu aspect language uNomkhulwane. I don't know if you've never heard of uNomkhulwane. uNomkhulwane, it's a very, you know, when we look at the rainbow, for instance, you know, and the rainbow in isiZulu is called, Timo Martinez, you know, it's called Timo. It's the beauty, it's the metal, you know, symbol. You know, it's something that we wear.
Oh.
You know, it's the metal of the Divine Mother, Timo Nkosazana. And the uNomkhulwane is the goddess of creativity, of harvest, you know. And when you look into the Zulu culture, you check Guti, you know, there's even now groups, you know, call themselves uNomkhulwane. uNomkhulwane goes with wisdom, you know, and the wisdom in the Christianity, remember we say the wisdom is a she, is a Sophia, is symbolized by wisdom. And in the book of Proverbs, it's always like it's a she, it's a she, the wisdom. So the wisdom of creativity and on all that, isiZulu uNomkhulwane. Yes, so that's the aspect of the divine feminine in the African context, when in the isiZulu context. I just wanted to share that with you so that we understand that, you know, I know that every culture, you know, in our African spirituality have that aspect of the divine feminine. Yes.
And just,
Mwaku, once.
Oh, sure.
Mwaku?
Yebo, sanibonani.
yeah,
You know, as we start on this auspicious journey, I wanted to bring a long forgotten aspect of divinity. If you look at nature, it can be just as destructive as well.
yes,
If you look at Mother Nature, when the time for the earthquake has to happen, it will happen. And it cannot be seen as not part of the divine nature.
yes,
If you look at the volcano as it comes out of the earth, so there's aspects of or the system that has been employed in this third dimension that we live in, that there is two sides of the system that needs to juxtapose one another in order to bring a process of transformation. And we should not forget that as we start this journey, because this is why if you trickle down, people are stuck in positivity and they think negativity is actually wrong.
yes,
And placing the wrongness on that negativity, it's also against what we are actually, as people, we sort of close and say, I want positivity only. But the negative aspect of everything, that which we call negative, actually has to be brought in. So Mother Nature can have other aspects that are not so desirable according to our conditioning. So we need to look at that. And then the last part is to remember that the energy of love is the same as the energy of so-called hatred, or the other side. So these two, negative and positive, they've got the same type of energy. If they didn't have the same type of energy, then they would be imbalanced,
yes.
which is against the Divine Mother. So I just wanted to bring that forward.
Thank you very much, Olani.
Yes, thank you so much. And then in one of the excerpts that I put today, the Divine Mother states exactly that. And I'm so glad that you brought that up. And as we get to the channelings and to that excerpt that I have, it will speak exactly to that. And that is a fundamental truth, because the mathematical equations and the chemical equations and whatever balances that they are, the left and the right must balance at any given time.
Yes.
So and
Definitely.
one cannot exist without the other. There
Yes.
has to be, for an up to be there has to be a down. So thank you so much for that pertinent point, for bringing that up. And I just
Thank you.
also to raise that just going back on African history, this is actually in America, it's Black History Month. And so there's a lady that I follow. She posts a lot on Black African history, but she's focusing more on the female aspect. And I just wanted to raise how queendoms were natural in the African context. In prehistoric Africa, queens were regarded, in such high and high priestesses as well. They were taken in high regard. So it's actually of more recent, quote unquote, recent times where there has been such a great imbalance with this between the divine feminine and the divine masculine. So just the aspects of Divine Mother, one of them was mentioned that I wrote here, were Mother Nature, and the very thing that Mwaku was brought forth is what I wanted to go into, was that Mother Nature is impersonal, and Mother Nature, exists for you just as for me, whether you're black, white, pink, or green. And that's one of the universal principles of love as well, is that love is universal irrespective. And that's why even the destructive nature of life, the destructive nature of nature is impersonal. It's just universal. So that is one of the important aspects. And another aspect of Divine Mother that I want to bring forth is that it's actually not a gender thing. which a lot of people tend to think it has nothing to do with gender. Whether you identify as male, female, she, he, or they, that's irrelevant. The divine feminine is an energy within. The divine mother is an energy within, irrespective of your gender, irrespective whether you are male or female. It's the aspects of the divine feminine within you. You understand? The aspects of compassion, the aspects of love, the aspects of creativity, these the nurturing, all that we speak to. They are equally important aspects, and aspects of the divine masculine are very important. For example, the intellect is more of a divine masculine, and the will is more of a divine masculine. But it's very important because we know that love, have you heard of love is blind? So love needs to be there with some wisdom as well, and some intellect, and the will needs to be there, and the logic needs to be there. So there's this balance that always needs to be there as well. And there's a sentence that I wrote here, which I love a lot, that says, the divine father is the expression of source through infinite forms, while the divine mother is the source which we all spring from. So the divine father is the expression of source through infinite forms, and divine mother is the source which we all spring. And those are equally important, because you cannot have source without the expression, but you cannot have expression without the source.
Yes, absolutely.
You see, so those two are very important. And here I'd just like to bring in just some current issues, though, is, we speak about the balance needed, even Marco just brought it forth. Just your thoughts, and this is just for discussion. How do you think the imbalance between the feminine, the divine feminine, and the divine masculine, how has it affected our society today? And what do you think could be an avenue to kind of, empower sometimes is a word that's used so often that it loses its texture, but to raise the balance, to bring back the balance of the divine feminine and the divine masculine. Because I keep mentioning the divine masculine because I don't want to set it aside, because it's important for the balance. And just your thoughts on how society has been affected by this imbalance between the divine feminine and the divine masculine. Any thoughts, anyone?
So for me, where it starts, it's level of awareness. In the sense that I look at what seems to win, for lack of a better phrase, is the macho thing. The issue around Ukraine is coming to a fight because we're not talking. In a domestic violence setup, post the talks, then the fighting, which suggests to me that the default position then, or the perception, or the generally accepted views that push masculine type of thing. And that when you go to the compassionate energy, it's almost like, yeah, but this one seems to be the solution, So with that, the thoughts that are coming to mind is more just around than to say what is my role in firstly accepting the norm, the norm or what's accepted as a way of doing things. And it can be simple things like what Rev says a few times, that even how we entertain ourselves. I mean, if you sit and say, what do I like? You look at the showpiece, you look at, there's always this, it comes down to this macho-ness or fights or something winning at the end of the day. And sometimes then, as a society, then we think that is the way to deal with this. And we feel that things like being compassionate
declaring peace or having empathy, it's weaker.
Yes.
So I suppose the point I'm making is to say the awareness just of how of the need for empathy, the love, to be a solution and to be our way of thinking and to be what becomes our default position is for me an important point to start at. You know, how do you entertain yourself for starters, even before the conflicts start? You know, are you entertained by violence? How are your kids entertained? How do you think balance is struck? I mean, I'm also, so this is the last thing I'll say, that even with, when you were on Ade's show about the legal system, you spoke about restoration
Yes.
as being critical to the African legal system.
Yes.
You know, restoration, you can't restore if there isn't empathy
Yes.
and compassion towards the family that may be victims of a violation. So I think that reflection around what our default position is important.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much. Yeah. Well said. Well said.
Yeah. Any thoughts?
Has raised is and what I observed the one as part of my sadness when it comes to the way in which the world has how we've carried this imbalance between the divine feminine, the divine masculine. We have in a way meshed notions of power and strength largely with divine masculine traits, right? So whether like intellect, and at the extreme, I'm not saying there are forms of strength, there are forms of power, but we have, in a way, separated traits that are coming from the divine feminine side with notions of strength and power. So to show compassion to weakness, to be empathetic to weakness. So power, strength, and authority are concepts that we moved away from the divine feminine. So a show of strength is physical, a show of power is physical, or violence. A show of strength is intellectual and not emotional. To be emotional is to be weak, is not to be authoritative when you speak from a place of emotion. So I think for me, it's the sadness is around taking concepts, these three concepts, power, authority, third one, power, authority, and strength, away from the traits they operate associated with the divine feminine and attaching them to traits that marrying them very, very closely and permanently to traits that are associated with the divine.
Yo, thanks. Very pertinent, very pertinent. Anyone online who would like to share? The floor is open. You can just unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
It's Mwago again. I want to, you know, there's things about words that we normally do not actually get to engage deeper into these words. There's a word that you used as you were defining the mother, the divine mother, and you used the word infinite. And if we are infinite, how are we going to bring that into the practical day-to-day life? Because infinity is quite a concept. And being one with the universe, we need to figure out how to live that in day-to-day life to make it practical. So now that's just one thing. And then the imbalance that you were talking about just now, which is on the floor, when we grow up, we learn, if you're a child and they give you a glass, because your hands are small, you break the glass because you don't have capacity yet. So if you check children or adolescent children and all that, all of them, when they grow up, they don't have a sense of how to express themselves. So we go with from what is not into what is. So by design, we are designed to not knowing, from moving from not knowing into knowing, bringing in the intuitive space, which is why the Divine Mother is a teacher, which is what we call intuition. So now what happens is the imbalance comes in when we are too much on the other side of the scale of not knowing, and we stay with the not knowing and we never move to the other side because of the construct of the community. Because remember, if the soil is not rich, what happens is that which is planted there is never going to have nutrients. So because of the habitual state of mind that we are brought up with, the RAS, which is the reticular activating system that forms your beliefs and everyday living, stops you from going over to the other side because the hypothalamus thinks that it's a threat to actually change and move into balance because it sees it as a death, the same as life and death situation.
Yes.
So we need to know that we are going to start with what is not, but then we stick with the what is not because it is safe, because it is what we know, and because it is how we are used to doing things. And we take that as our identity, which then removes the whole balance thing. If, for instance, if you today, if you tell somebody, I remember my daughter, she was talking to one of her friends, and she says, well, actually a cousin, she says, my dad does laundry. And she said, no ways, men are not, the other girl said, no ways, men are not supposed to do laundry. He says, but my dad does laundry. And she gives me a call and she says, Papa, tell this girl that you are actually making, you do our laundry. And I said, yeah, I do your laundry. So you see that other girl's reticular activating system, because of the imbalance of the society of what was said, it became a norm into the other side, which is she's never seen a man who does laundry.
Yes, so true, so true.
So that's just the aspect that I wanted to bring forth to the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marco. Oh, that was just awesome. That was a powerful share. And yeah, just to resonate, what spoke to me the most with what Marco said is he's speaking about what we usually call collective consciousness.
Yes.
Yes. And how we are in the milieu of this collective consciousness, are brought up in this collective consciousness. And like he said, our brain and the way it's wired to move out of this collection consciousness almost seems like you're fighting yourself.
Yeah.
And the ego will just fight at all costs to stay in this comfortable position, because it's safer, quote unquote, safer.
Yeah.
But we'll redefine safety, of course. Is any other thoughts on this imbalance between the divine feminine and the divine masculine? Welcome, Divine D. Looking gorgeous as always.
This what Mwako has just shared with us reminds me of the scripture when Paul said, be not be conformed of this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And we are so aligned to conformity. What this little girl was saying, she is conforming, to societal norms. No matter it's societal norms, no matter how destructive and imbalanced it is. Yes. So we are in this constant way of actually renewing our mind to what truth is, to the reality of what is truth with a capital T. So yes, so it's all conformity, because when you don't conform, it's very uncomfortable. That little girl was feeling very uncomfortable about the dad who's doing laundry.
Yeah.
You see, and there's so many things that makes us feel uncomfortable. And when a man is expressing divine attributes, we call it don't be a sissy, and we call them names when they are actually expressing the divine feminine attributes, which is the balance. Yes.
And, you know, I'd just like to add on this point, I'm gonna talk about my partner because my partner is actually a better cook than me. And, you know, sometimes I say that to my friends and I say, you know, the person who cooks 80% of the time is my partner. And then some people say, ooh, why do and for me, I couldn't grasp that because, you know, cooking, and some of the best chefs in the world are actually male.
Yeah.
So, you know, it just goes to show that conformity, you know, just that breaking free of that norm, you know, is something that takes conscious effort actually. And like Mwako put it, going from the not knowing to the knowing, that process actually requires a conscious, continuous effort.
Yes.
You know, any other thoughts, shares, or are we cool?
Yes.
All right, I think we're
I just
fine.
want to say,
And
Wow. This is Dineo, your long lost friend. So I just wanted to say hi everybody, Yeah, I'm not gonna have best buddies.
Wow, that's great. Okay, so now I think we'll go into the second session where I am just gonna share now my personal journey and how I got to this point of channeling. And besides getting to the point of channeling, but getting to the point of acceptance. And even beyond acceptance, getting to the point of being, you see. So I'll just give some background and contextualize everything so that I can really bring you, I want you to walk this journey with me. So, you know, I was brought up in a home where confidence was the norm. You know, to the point where even my handwriting, my mother would say, don't write like you're apologizing.
Yes.
You know, even my handwriting is big, you can see it's big and bold. You know, so I was raised with being okay with myself. You know, I would say things like I'm a big, bold, beautiful woman. You know, when people used to call me fat, you see, and I would say things like I'm destined for greatness, because this is how I was brought up. You know, I was brought up with that sense. But I went to a Catholic school, and the Catholic school was fantastic for a spiritual grounding, you know, because for prayer, you know, actually having the sense of God in your life and all of that. But then my mom in 1999, Rev Thandi is my mom, by the way, for those of you who might not know, went to Unity and was the first ordained minister in South Africa in the Unity concept. And now I went with her on this journey. I was with her as she was studying. And so, you know, I'm very curious, inquisitive, and, you know, I like to research and I would read some of the things when she's not there.
12.
Yeah, I was 12 and 13, over 12 and 13 over that 2-year span. And, you know, that's when I started hearing concepts of Father, Mother, God. And I started hearing concepts of God within. And I started hearing concepts of your thoughts, you know, are creative. So these concepts are concepts that really, as a teenager, you're now becoming a critical thinker. You know, you're starting to explore now on your own beyond just what you are fed. And then at about the age of 16, then I came back, by the way, to South Africa, and I went back to the Catholic school. I don't know if I should say it, but it's Dominican convent. I went back to the Catholic school, and I was in Catholic class because I was actually baptized as Catholic. So now in grade 10, I don't know how many people know, but in grade 10, you actually go and become confirmed, where you go through a confirmation process now in the Catholic Church, and it's called confirmation. So you're going through confirmation classes. And you can even hear the name, you are confirming that you are Catholic, you know? And so some of those classes really, you know, because now I had known truth and I had come to hear words like Father, Mother, God, and the divine within, and they were really not resonating with me anymore. And I was not resonating with the Catholic class anymore. So then it was a big deal in high school. But anyway, I walked out of the Catholic class and went to the non-Catholics, and the non-Catholics were rebels, you know. So I went to the non-Catholic class. And that same year, I actually attended Youth of Unity. And this was the first time I actually attended a spiritual session outside of Rev, you know, because I had known unity with Rev, but now I was independently exploring and independently assimilating, independently talking to people my age who were also getting this knowledge, you know, this divine knowledge, this truth, and we were assimilating and talking about it together. So, you know, as a teenager, obviously you grow and life goes. And I went to Youth of Unity, came back, and then the next thing I had to worry about matric. Then for my matric year, which is something I tell a lot of people, is I actually failed because there was higher grade and standard grade. Well, so I actually had a 45% for maths, and 45% was a fail because higher grade you had to have 50% to pass. And this was at my trials, you know, the third semester. And what I did, I put my marks that I wanted to have for my exams. And that's when I first started using affirmations, right? I put my marks of what I wanted to have. And I would look at them every day. And of course, I'd study, I'd do the practical part of it. I'd study, I'd do whatever. And believe it or not, I went from 45 to 68% in math. So I asked myself, how much did I get for that exam? I must have got that 85 that I put there. Now I'll go back to this later, why I'm referring to these affirmations. Now, went to university, you know, I must be honest, university was just a ball, spirituality was a thing there far away. You know, I would speak about the law of attraction, the secret started coming out, you know, so my friends used to say, KG, you know another secret, you know, I would speak about it. And even for weight loss, I tell my friends, guys, now I visualize myself as size 34, guys, you attract whatever you put in your mind, KG, the secret, you know? And so it was there, but I wasn't really intricately, you know, practicing, like having a spiritual practice, but it was just knowing truth. You know, when you know truth, it goes with you wherever you go. So, started working, I'm taking you on a journey with me, right? So be patient. So started working, you know, went to the mines. Hey, when I got to the mines, it was rough because I was earning a lot of money and I had a very nice car. I still miss that car. I was driving a very nice sports car and I used to drive so fast. And you know, I was earning a very big salary for a 22-year-old. You know, I was earning a massive salary, but I was deeply unhappy, you know. And this was my first, you know, sometimes people call it the quarter life crisis. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. So I was deeply, deeply unhappy to the point where I called up my mom one evening. I remember because I was so scared to even call you that day. I called up my mom that evening and I just said to her, Mom, I can't do this anymore. I want to come back home. You know, you know, everyone is telling me, just hold on, be a geologist. But I just couldn't just do it for the money. You know, part of my soul knew it had to make me happy. And having the mother I have, you know, she said, your home is always open. 2010, I came back. And now what you must realize is that the home that I was brought up in is a home full of books and metaphysical books, and a home full of, I can say, I don't want to use the word empowerment, but a home that builds you. That's why it's very important for us who are in truth to teach our children and the next generation that's coming. Because I was from that home, once I got through to that quarter life crisis, then I started reading books on truth. You know, I started again reminding myself, because the world laughed at me. Friends who were there were no longer there. You know, I was not having the money that I had. I was no longer sis my Lisa, as my friends would call me when I'd come and buy a case of Savannah. That was no longer me. And the friends started disappearing. You know, I started being a laughing stock. Oh, geologist, and you must understand that psyche really does a lot. So I delved into books. And being a bookworm, that's what we tend to do as bookworms. Books become our safety. And then this crossed over now into 2011. And 2011 is where this whole process began, where it all started. Because in 2011, I was working at YFN, as life would have it. I went as an intern and then became a copywriter. But I was in this very fast-paced, very superficial world. And somewhere, somehow, it wasn't, I got lost in it. Had a massive car accident. I don't know if you can see, but my ankle is still messed up till today, but it's fine, though. But that accident, believe it or not, is the accident that saved my life.
It's the volcano.
Yes, it's the volcano, exactly. It's the negative aspect, as Marco would put it. That was necessary, because after that accident, I had time. I literally had 6 weeks where I couldn't do anything. I was immobile. I was sitting on my bed with my foot up like this. And all I could do was sit. Then this is very quiet. All I could do was sit in silence and read and meditate. And that's all I did all the time. And as I was going through this process, that's when I started delving into deeper and deeper forms of metaphysics. I started reading books like Cosmic Magnetism. I started reading books like The Path to Love by Deepak Chopra. I started, reading these very, very, these mystic books. And I've always had this interest in the occult and in the depth, and it just, took over me. And to the point where I was reading 5 books. I often tell this, where I'd be reading 5 books at a time. I'd read a chapter of this, put this down, read a chapter of that, put that down, and just immersing myself in all this information. Then I read this book by Deepak Chopra, called, I think it's Immortality. Some Radical Immortality. I'll just remember the name. I'll write it down and give it to you in the groups for later. But the book in itself, it's not really a book where you read chapter by chapter. It just has one sentence, and that one sentence could be something like, light is made up of photons. And you just contemplate on it. Then the next one will go deeper and says, photons are blocks of energy, and then you just contemplate on that. And then the next sentence would maybe say, energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So it's just those one sentence book. That is the book that really and truly, till today, I say, it cracked me to the other side. Because about, I can say, a week or so after reading that book, I started having a different aspect or a different understanding or a different thought process to what energy is, where I was now thinking of science and energy and even the divinity and all of that put together. So about a week or 2 later, I'm writing in my journal, normal writing. I journal, I'm a big fan of journaling. I journal daily, or almost daily anyway. And I was journaling. And as I'm journaling, all of a sudden, I don't even know how to explain it besides the fact that it just sounds like a dictaphone, like you hear just the next word, not even the next sentence or the next paragraph, just the next word. And I'm just writing the next word. And my hand is moving, but the handwriting is not mine. I do not recognize that handwriting. It's almost like I don't know what to call it in English, scribbles, and it's like and yeah, scribbles, yeah. And I'm writing, and I'm going. And it's just probably 2, 3, 4 pages. And at the end, I read it. And as I'm reading, like shock, the words were shock, fear, not understanding, confused, Then it happened the second time about 2 or 3 days later. Then that's when I went to go show Brave, and I was like, this is what's happening, I've been this writing and it just happens with my hand, and these are the words that come through. And that's when she first, explained to me about the channeling process and auto writing. And that's when it actually hit me that, okay, so this is auto writing. At that time though, I think, for lack of a better word, I was spiritually immature because literally it blew my mind, to a point where I had mental dilemmas. I call them mental dilemmas. From that point, trying to go deeper and deeper into this aspect, but not being spiritually grounded and using other methods to get to that space whereby I wasn't ready. It's like putting voltage that is so high in a battery that can't take it. So I had mental breaks over a space of 6 years, so between 2011 and 2016, every year there were this consistent mental breaks. And what would happen is the channeling would come. That's why I say they're in chronological order, but there's no date. The channeling would come, but I just couldn't take it. My spirituality was not containing it. So I just couldn't take it, to the point where I started affiliating my spirituality with insanity. So I cut off all spirituality. So when I stopped, I met my partner in 2016 and got back to a stable sense of life. And at that point, I cut off all spirituality because I was very fearful of going back there, fearful of going to a place of not trusting myself, fearful of going to a place of not knowing myself. And so I just cut it all out. Fast forward, I'm almost there, guys. Fast forward to 2019. Me and my partner lost our firstborn son 3 days after my 33rd birthday. And I mentioned 33 because 33 is what they call the Jesus year. Yeah, it's the year where Jesus, came into himself and, the dying on the cross and, rising, resurrection. It was actually when Jesus was 33. And at that time, I had nowhere to go except to God, because the pain was so deep, so immense, that no matter how I tried to go to friends or to my mom or to anyone, the pain just would not go away. It's such a deep pain losing a child. I can't even explain how painful it is, So that pain was just so much that the only alternative I had was to go to God with it. And it's around about that time where Kabelo sent a link to the 12 powers. 12 powers is the powers that we speak of in unity, which is the family that the spiritual family that we have. And I did that course, and I was there faithful. You remember, I was there every Wednesday. Remember, Papa V? It was my lifeline. That course was my lifeline to remembering truth, to remembering who I am. And that's when the fear of my spirituality started dissipating, because now I was stable, and the fear of emancipating myself in spirituality was dissipating. And so it's at that point where I felt like, okay, I'm spiritually evolving and I'm solidifying myself. Then Reb one day mentions, and she says, you must go back to that journal. I keep all my journals, all 10 or 20 of them. She says, you must go back to those journals. And at first there was not a resentment, but a reservation. And I went back to the journals. And as I was reading those journals, the truth that came through from there, and some of the statements and some of the, principles and beauty, and I'm going to read some of them with you. The third session is going to start just now. It was just so awesome that I couldn't not share. I realized that it's nothing to be afraid of. So that's where the acceptance started coming in, which is a process in itself. Because sometimes I used to feel like, but like I'm KG who drinks Savannah and who parties, and I'm just this lay person. But just like Saul became Paul, the greatness is yours, irrespective of who you are, irrespective of what you've done, irrespective of what the little you might say to you, your greatness is there, and that greatness is in all of us. So that brings us to 2021, which was last year, where I picked up the book and I started channeling again, because at this time, the channeling process was much less fearful, much less confusing, but more of a conduit. You know, I felt more like a conduit. I felt more at peace, but it would feel so expansive, because after I channel, I just feel so big that I can't even feel my body sometimes, you know. And that fear really is non-existent anymore. The fact that I'm having this workshop, you know, is a very big deal for me. That's why I'm so grateful for everybody who's here and everybody who's online. And you know, and the white will people say, or people will say I'm blaspheming, all of those fears dissipated. And in 2022,
Just a small break before you go into the third.
yes, we'll have a small break,
coffee breaks, you know, just 5 minutes.
Sure.
Yes,
Yeah,
because
but
Papa, I think it's time for a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
All right, so
Yes.
so 2022 was when it deepened, and I said it's time to express and voice and share. And then we can take a break here, and then we'll talk about the excerpts when we come back.
Yes, let's give it time.
Okay, so everyone online will take let's say it's the time now is 3:42. So we'll come back. Let's take how many 15-minute break? But 10, yeah, 15 is a bit from.
10 minutes.
Just a 10-minute break. So we'll come back. Let's make it 8 minutes so we have around time. We'll come back at 3:50. Grab a cup of coffee, grab a juice, grab whatever, stretch your legs, and then we'll come back at 3:50, and then we'll begin on the excerpts, on the meditation on the excerpts, and the discussion on the excerpts.
Thank you.